Of course, abortion access is being taken down from the Midwest to the South all over the country. So of course, as this is happening, we have to make sure, at least from these particular legislators and these leaders in these states, let's find a way to make it worse. So in this particular case, we have a couple examples of how things are gonna go further down. First of all, in Georgia, there is a law that is gonna now be considered making that fetus given personhood. And also in Missouri, if you're a pregnant woman, and you can no longer get a divorce. Actually, it's always kind of been that way, but with these other laws, it's gonna make it that much worse. How about we go to some of these details just to talk about how all of these freakouts about what happened are actually true. So Georgia's ban on most abortions after about 6 weeks into pregnancy is now in effect after a 3-judge panel ruled on Wednesday that the 2019 law can no longer be seen as unconstitutional. Georgia's law also redefines a natural person to include the unborn and other personhood provisions. The decision rejected claims that considering an unborn child a natural person is unconstitutionally vague. This is the impact it's gonna have on tax law, because of course it's gonna reflect everything else. Georgia's law also allows expecting parents to claim their unborn child as a dependent, requires the father to pay child support while their offspring is still in utero, and deems an unborn child to be, quote, a natural person. These taxpayers now, in 2019, we're going to have to pay a certain amount more because of these changes. Now, in 2019, one Republican legislator told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that private accountants had estimated that the ban could cost the state between $10 million and $20 million in taxes. However, the state official didn't perform a formal evaluation of the potential cost. So we got personhood, we've got potentially having to pay for this child while it's in utero. Maybe that's some of the things that were getting floated by some libs and some progressives that are like, hey, how about we have the men that are involved in these things take care of it? We'll see how that pans out. But I mentioned Missouri as well and being pregnant in that state. There's an old law that went into effect after this Roe recall that prohibits divorce for pregnant women. More of these triggers. Let's get into details of that. Before the high court struck down Roe versus Wade, a divorce in Missouri could be finalized after a woman had an abortion. But Missouri divorce cases cannot be finalized if a woman is pregnant, since a custody agreement must be in place. That custody agreement cannot be completed until the child is born. Now it kind of seems like it makes some sense because if you're gonna have a child, we have to know if we're gonna get divorced, is this person gonna be responsible for that child? Is it really his child? That's where the sticking point comes. There are 8 questions asked of everyone filing for divorce in Missouri. One of them is whether the wife is pregnant. If the answer is yes, the divorce proceedings can continue if the attorney chooses, but cannot be finalized until the woman is no longer pregnant. According to the Missouri statute, the court must first establish paternity of a child before a divorce can be finalized. That's what Shannon Gordon said. She's a family law attorney practicing in the Kansas City metro area. Due to a statutory presumption that a baby born during a marriage is the child of the husband, a DNA test is often completed after the child is born in order to establish paternity in court. Then divorce proceedings can continue. One more part about this, you guys. There are no exceptions to the divorce law for survivors of domestic violence. Another sticking point. It's weird, it's almost like they didn't think of this stuff. Even though some victims can physically escape their abuser while the divorce is on hold, other things like finances can be wielded to, quote, a really devastating degree. And we already know when it comes to control, when it comes to marriages and abusive folks, it's not always just about physical abuse, but of course in these cases it may be, but then also financial abuse and holding that over some folks' head and having them in positions where there's not much freedom there. So of course, let's just punch in a few laws that'll make these restrictions on someone's life, specifically a woman's life, that much tougher.
Okay, 2 different issues here. One is the divorce issue that's in Missouri. Can it be done in a different way? Of course, most other states do it in a different way, and you could figure out the pregnancy issue later, etc. I don't think that's a hard fix. And in Missouri, divorce lawyers will literally tell women, if you're getting a divorce, don't get pregnant. Whatever you do, do not get pregnant because it'll delay it by 9-10 months, okay? So there's definitely another way to do it. Now, the more important issue is the fetal personhood because that's gonna affect everyone across the country. And so does it affect the divorce in this state? Of course it does, right? But it also affects many other things. Do they count as dependents for tax purposes? Because now you guys, the Republicans are saying, no, at the moment of conception, it's already a fully independent human being, despite the fact that it's not, right? So can you claim as a dependent? Of course, But then how do you know you're not pregnant? Maybe you did conceive last night, you just don't know it. And maybe it's twins, maybe it's triplets. I'll put that down as dependents and see how it goes, right?
We don't know yet.
I mean, we don't know, right? I got a lot, we got a lot of potential human beings running around. I mean, wait till you get into, anyway. I'm just gonna talk about male genitalia and how much potential life that has. Okay, I'm gonna have a lot of dependents. Okay, when those tax forms come around, because this is absurd. Here, I got one more for you guys. So there's theoretically that part in the Constitution that says if you're not born in America, you could become a naturalized citizen and have 100% of the rights of citizens, except you're not allowed to become president. Now, I happen to think that was vitiated by the 14th Amendment, but conventional wisdom is, oh, that's true, okay? But wait a minute. That used to be if you're not born in America, but what if you were born in a different country, but you were conceived in America? I mean, you say that it's a life after the moment of conception. A lot of people conceived in America on vacation and then went back home. Congratulations, you now all have American citizen children. Hey, they're opening up a giant can of worms here. All right.
Yeah,
yes.
I think also we all have to change our birthdays to now the day we were conceived, which is just like creepy to explain to a child. But it's very
gonna get awkward.
Yeah, that's a tough conversation to have with your kid on the first birthday. But I suspect that they calculated these costs based on assuming that these families would have a child tax credit. They didn't really think too much about the cost to individuals, to private citizens. So think about if you're a man and now you have to start paying child support at the point of conception, that's something they have to think about now as well. I also think about like kids eat for free promotions. If you're pregnant, you're eating for the child. I mean, we could cause a lot of problems at a lot of restaurants in America with that one. But I also think about the cost to the state when it comes to legal issues, because now, of course, if it's a person at the point of conception, they're going to severely prosecute if a woman has a miscarriage. They're going to investigate that and figure out why that baby died. And also it puts a lot of pressure in these states where there's an exception for if the woman's life is at risk, the pregnant person's life is at risk, and they decide to go through with the medical procedure of an abortion. Now they're going to investigate what doctor made that determination, what was the likelihood that the woman would actually die if she didn't get the procedure. That's a lot of money that they're going to have to pay state prosecutors' offices, detectives, police who are going to have to investigate this. And so that's a lot of additional money as well. And not something that we should be putting pregnant people through who are already going through traumatic events if their life is at risk with their pregnancy.
Yeah, look guys, if you live in one of these Taliban states, cause a hot mess. I'm being totally serious. Don't make it up that you're pregnant. But if you are pregnant, hit those buffets where the children eat free or whatever it is. I'm not kidding at all. Create giant problems. Definitely file for them as tax dependents, so you're gonna get credit for that. Just in every way where an actual human being would be an advantage. If you got a zygote inside you, go, okay? You know why? Because the only other thing that Republicans care about is money, okay? So if it turns out this is costing the government a lot of money, and hence some rich people some money, all of a sudden they're like, whoa. I mean, we were just trying to trick you guys into voting for us. Now all of a sudden, people have lost rights, and my wife has to fly to Paris to get an abortion, and now I got to pay more because you guys are filing these zygotes as tax dependents? Who knows? Maybe they'll send out their Republican servants to reverse the rule.
It's just weird. It's one of those things where you try to figure out, people come up with all these laws and these rules and like, oh, we're gonna be sneaky. All these extra things that now we just think about for these 5-7 minutes. All these extra things that now have to be taken into effect, the way people might respond, the way people might have to pay, the way a state and a government has to then respond to all of this. And why? Because they wanna win the midterms and because they wanna continue this same culture war approach to their politics. That is the only reason why all these extra headaches that are absolutely unnecessary for so many people, including the people that are trying to make these laws and put them into effect, are then gonna have to now be addressed. Only because of control, but they're open to that. They just didn't think about it before, but they're open to that because that's how important it is. We've seen the January 6 hearings and we've seen the cohorts of Donald Trump and the back and forth and backbreaking, bend over backwards things they've gone through. only for control. Kevin McCarthy was scared out of his mind on January 6th, but he went back on his knees because of control and power. And he doesn't even have that yet. This is why we're doing it.
Yeah, totally. The other interesting thing about the money thing is just that states, they can't just vote to spend dollars. They're not currency issuers. That's the federal government. So by pushing this back to the states and making this a burden of the states, the only way that they're going to pay for this stuff is raising tax dollars, because this is going to be an expenditure to the state unless they decide to appropriate federal funds. And members of the right, when they want to get something done, like pass huge defense budgets, they're not really playing the pay for game. They're not asking people, how are we going to pay for this? Are we going to have the Federal Reserve just credit the account with new dollars? When it's the Democrats trying to pass progressive legislation, then it's always a cry that this will cause inflation and we absolutely can't do it. But whenever they want to do something, totally fine, billions of dollars to defense, so they could appropriate federal funds. It's more likely that they're going to have the states fund these things, which means in these red states, they're going to experience really high tax rates. And if there's one thing that Republicans really don't like, it's taxes. But will they connect those dots? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, Republicans do hypocrisy for a living. Freedom, asterisks, except for women. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.